I'd like to introduce you to the materials and tools you need to provide for the leather and lace project. The first item is a bead mat. This is the work surface. Next you'll need a few beading needles. I prefer size 11 or 12 beading needles. You'll need some type of beading thread. I use 6-pound fireline or nylon beading thread. Next is a tool for cutting your beading threads close to your beadwork, thread snips or wire cutters. Flat nose or chain nose pliers come in handy to flatten a thread, making it easy to thread your needle. This tool is optional. You will end your beadwork with leather or a 5-strand clasp. The leather kit comes with the leather ends, KO thread to match your leather, and 2 size 12 glover's needles. The bracelet base. We're going to build a base with C beads, size 11 and size 8. So I've threaded my needle with about 2 yards of fireline, and you want to pull your thread down about 6 inches from the needle. It's going to be a single thread. I like to use my pliers to flatten my thread before I thread the needle. Makes it easier to see. You can use the white of your paper to make it easier to thread your needle. So step 1, we're going to pick up 2 8s, 3 11s, and 2 8s, and 3 more 11s. And we're going to pull those down towards the end of your tail. And we're going to tie this into a circle, leaving about 6 inches to weave out later. I'm going to tie a double knot, and then you want to turn it so that your 11 seed beads are on the right hand side up from the knot, and we're going to go up those 3 11 seed beads. So we have our first square built. Now we're going to go to step 2. I like to use a card so I can keep up with where I'm at. We're going to pick up 2 8s, 3 11s, and 2 8s. Then we're going to come around here and go up our 11s. Into our 8s. And down our 11s. So we've completed step 2. Step 3, we're going to pick up 2 8s, 3 11s, and 2 8s. We're going to come around this direction and go down our 11s. Continue into our 8s. And up the 11s. So we finished our first 3 squares, so we finished 3 steps. We're going to go into step 4. We're going to pick up 2 8s, 3 11s, and 2 8s. We're going to come around this direction. We're going to go up the 3 11s. Into our 8s, and down our 11s. Okay, so step 5, we're going to pick up 2 8s, 3 11s, and 2 8s. We're going to circle around this direction and go down our 3 11s. Continue into the 8s. And up the 11s. Okay, step 6, we're going to pick up 2 8s, 3 11s, and 2 8s. We're going to circle around and go back up our 11s and into our 8s and down our 11s. Okay, so we've got 6 across, and in this step we're going to go into our 8s here, one additional step so we can get to row 2. Okay, so step 7, we're going to pick up 3 11s, 2 8s, and 3 11s. And we're going to go right to left into the 2 8s. And down the 3 11s. Okay, so now we're going to move on to page 3. So we're on step 8. We're going to pick up 2 8s and 3 11s. I'm going to go left to right into the 8s. Then we'll go down our 11s. And we're just going to keep going around till we get back up to that top row. I'm going up the 11s and into the 8s. Okay, so step 9, we're going to pick up 3 11s and 2 8s. We're going to go up the 11s and continue into our 8s and our 11s. Step 10, we're going to pick up 2 8s and 3 11s. Now we're going to go left to right into the 2 8s. And then we'll go down our 11s. Into our 8s. Up the 11s. And we're going to exit the 8s on the upper row. Step 11, we're going to pick up 3 11s and 2 8s. So now we're going to go up the 3 11s, into the 2 8s, and down the 3 11s. Step 12, pick up 2 8s and 3 11s. We're going to go left to right into the 2 8s. And then we'll continue down our 11s and out to 2 8s. So we've completed the first 2 rows. Step 13, we're going to pick up 3 11s and 2/8. And 3/11. We're going to go right to left into the 2/8. And then we're going to go down our 11s. And then we're going to work our way back up to that second row again. So we'll go up the 11s and into the 8s. Okay, so that's 13. So now we'll move on to step 14. We're going to pick up 3 11s and 2 8s. We're going to go up to 3 11s and continue into our 8s. And down our 11s. Okay, we're going to pick up 2 8s and 3 11s. We're going to go right to left into the 2 8s. And then we're going to continue into our 11s. The 8s, 11s, and the 8s on the upper row. Now we're going to pick up 3 11s and 2 8s. We're going to go up the 3 11s. Into the 8s and down the 11s. So we're going to pick up 2 8s, 3 11s. We're going to go right to left into our 2 8s and down our 11s. And continue through the 8s and the 11s, and we're going to go to that upper row into the 2 8s. Okay, so now we're going to go to 18. We're going to pick up 3 11s and 2 8s. So we're going to go up the 3 11s into the 8s, down the 11s, and then we're going to exit the bottom 2 8s at the bottom row. So we're going to repeat steps 7 to 18 for a total of 18 to 21 rows. So you're just going to build your bracelet 3 rows at a time. And I usually do an average of 20 rows for a 5.5 to 6.5 inch wrist. So you'll just want to add more for a larger wrist size. The embellishment. We're going to add our 4mm and 11 seed beads to our bracelet base. And we want to start out by exiting the very end of the bracelet. So I'm coming out here, exiting the 2 8 beads on the end. We're going to pick up a size 11 seed bead, 4mm bead and 11 seed bead, And where we're coming out, we're going to go right to the next set of 2 size 8 seed beads. We're going to go from the bottom up, and it's going to lay our beads diagonally on the bracelet. And we're just going to do this all the way down the row. So I'm picking up my beads and going into my 8s. Picking up an 11, 4mm, and 11, and going into the 2 8s. Let's do one more. 11 seed bead, 4mm bead, 11 seed bead, and going up the 2 8s. We're going to continue this all the way down the row, and I've completed a row to show you. So once you get to the end, we have to turn around. So in the pattern it shows you you'll be exiting here, and you want to come around and exit here. So I'm exiting the 8 beads. I'm going to go into the 3 11 seed beads. I go down the 2 8s into the 3 11s, and down the 2 8s. So once you get turned around, I'm going to flip the bracelet, and we're going to do the row exactly the same. So we're going to pick up an 11 seed bead, 4mm bead, 11 seed bead, and go directly up the 2 8s. You can use pearls, crystals, gemstones, check glass, any 4mm bead will work. So picking up another 11, 4mm and 11, and going directly up the 2 8s. So you're going to just keep adding until you've completed your bracelet. Starting and ending your threads. This is the beginning of my bracelet base, and I've finished the first part. I've cut my threads, and now I have a tail, and I'd like to end the tail and weave it out. So I'm just going to go underneath 2 beads where the thread's coming out. I'm going in between 2 beads, I'm making a loop, and then I'm going to go into the loop with my needle. And I like to put my knots in the corners of the squares. So let's do one more. We're going in between the 2 beads where the thread's coming out. You're not going into any beads, you're only going underneath the thread. You're making a loop, and then you're going into the loop. And then you always want to run your needle into a couple of beads before you cut it. And now I'd like to continue working on my base, so I'm going to take a new needle and thread, and I'm going to run it into a couple of beads. And I'm going to hang on to my tail with my fingers. I'm doing the same thing. I'm going underneath the thread in between the 2 beads where the thread's exiting. It makes a loop, and then I go into the loop with my needle. Doesn't matter which direction. And I'll do another one underneath the thread in between the 2 beads and into the loop. This is called a half hitch knot. And now I'm going to work my way back around so I can continue my beadwork. It's a good thing to go in a circle once you get your knots in, so it holds your knot in place well. So I'm just going back through my beads, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to exit here, and I'm going to start my beadwork. So then you can just go in and trim the tail off and continue working. The attachment. We finished our beadwork, and we're going to attach the leather ends to the beadwork. I've threaded a needle with KO thread that matches my leather, and I'm using a size 12 Glover's needle, and this is going to be a single thread. Just bring it down about 6 inches from the needle. And we're going to start by working into our beadwork. So I'm going to hold on to the tail and just add a half hitch knot. And I want to work around to the outside of the size 8 seed beads. Okay, so exit the 2 size 8 seed beads. And I'm just going to go ahead and clip my tail. And you want to overlap that one row with your leather so that your size 8 seed beads are lined up on the leather. And if your leather attachment is slightly wider than your seed beads, you can use your Joy's chin scissors and trim your leather. Okay, so I'm going to hold this with one hand and I'm going to go into the leather coming out of those size 8 seed beads. And we're just going down and we're going to use our bead mat because the needle's sharp on both ends. We're going to push up and go into 2 size 8 seed beads. And we're going to repeat this all the way down. Make sure everything looks straight. So we're just going down into the leather and back up right in between those 2 sets of 8s. If you have trouble pulling your needle through, you just use your pliers to pull it through. I'm just going into the 8s and down and up into the leather. And use your bead mat to push your needle through. Use my pliers and go into the size 8 seed beads and watch to make sure you're lined up as you go along. Just going to go down and up using the bead mat. It's easy to get it wrapped around the leather attachment. So you're going to have to watch out for that. It's our last set of 8s. And before I turn it, I want to make sure everything's straight. I'm going to go back down. And come back up right at the end. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the 3/11 on the end. And then go back down into the leather. We're going to come back up and do the back row. Another tool that's useful is a finger glove, and you can cut these down to make them more comfortable to wear. And just however you grasp your fingers, you want to put it on that finger. But this helps to grab the needle better. I'm going to continue to go down and up in between my 8s. You can see the difference. This really helps to grab on. Sometimes you've got to stab a couple times to get in the right place. We're just going into the 8s and going down and up in the leather. Turn it this way. Just got 2 more. Okay, when you get to the last one, you want to continue to go down and up to secure it to the leather. One more time. And then you want to work back into your beads. And we're going to end our thread with 1/2 inch knots. And when you're working into your beadwork, sometimes it helps to flip it over and work from the back. It's a lot easier to see what you're doing when there's 4 millimeters around the way. So I'm just going to add my knots in the corners. And since you've completed your beadwork, you can add as many knots as you want at this point. And then I'll just trim my thread. And I've already attached my other side, but you want to go and repeat the same thing on the other side. And when you put it on your wrist, if you have a smaller wrist, you can double up your loop. Just slides over the button. And you can actually slide this one over and double it up, especially if you're sharing the bracelet with someone else, then it'll fit both people. So you can wear it like this. If it's a personal bracelet for yourself and you don't like that extra piece, you can just trim that off with your scissors. Just cut off that knot. And if you have a wider wrist, you're going to wear it here. And that completes the attachment. An optional clasp. Rather than attaching the beadwork to a leather kit, you can attach it to a 5-strand clasp. So I'm going to line up the 5 sections in between and attach it in between each 2 sets of size 8 seed beads. So I'm exiting the first set of 2 size 8 seed beads. And then we're going to go down into the loop. And then you'll go into the next 2 size 8 seed beads. And then go down into the next loop. And as I'm going down, I'm coming back up towards the beadwork and going into the next set of 2. Okay, so third set, third loop. Okay, we're going down into the 4th section. Okay, and into the 2/8 and then down into your final section. Okay, and this time we're going to go into the last set of 2 size 8 seed beads. And that's going to center it. We're going to go through this 3 times, so I'm going to come back around. You can cross over your size 4s, or you can go all the way around your outside perimeter of your square. You just want to get back to where you started. So I'm going to go back into that loop again. And then go into the next set of 2. So I go into the loop and then I come back up in between the loops. And I go into the next set of 2. And go all the way to the end. Then we're going to come back around, so you'll have to weave your way back over. And we'll go through it one more time. So 3 times total, because you want to make sure you have a good attachment. And we're just going into the 8s. You're going into your loop and then in between the loops and back into your 8s. And one left. Okay, and then I've found, rather than opening up your clasp to attach your other end, it's easier just to fold it over to make sure everything is in the right spot. And then you'll just complete the other side the same way over here. And so you'll have to make it longer, so it's going to, be a pretty good fit. You still want it somewhat loose. So just attach your clasp with the fire line. build your own leather kit. I've purchased some leather, and I have my beadwork here, and so you're going to measure the width of your beadwork. So it's about 1.5 inches, and then I cut 2 pieces and I round the corners to the ends, and so this one's going to be about 1 1/4, and this one's going to be about 1 inch. So I like to have one just a little bit longer than the other one. So I'm going to use my manila folder, which you can use any thin cardboard, to make a pattern. Once you get your pattern, you're just going to cut out the square and then, cut some rounded corners on it. And so you're going to lay that on your leather. And then I use the joist chin scissors, and I just go and I cut this out. And then you're going to cut out your other sides. And so I have my 2 pieces cut out here, and I've already put my hole punch in it, and I'm using a rotary leather punch, and I have it on the smallest setting. And so you're going to punch your hole high enough up so that your button will sit here. So I just go in and I punch a hole there, and then on the other side you want it close to the end, so I'm going to get closer to the end on my hole punch there. And then I have some 1mm leather, and to attach the button I'm just going to go into both holes, and then we're just going to make a loop on the back of the button. You're going to take both of those pieces, you're going to run them into the larger piece where the hole's a little bit further up, and pull that through, and then I just tie it in a knot on the back. Just make a loop and pull towards your leather. You want to get it to lay as flat as possible. And I always like the leather to go up towards the larger piece, so it's not going to bother you when you're wearing it. Then you just go in and trim with your joist chins, and you can use a dab of the, you can actually use fingernail polish, the clear fingernail polish, and dab it on there just to kind of secure it, or you can use a glue to put on the end. Okay, then I'm going to take a longer piece of the 1mm leather cording. I'm doubling it up, and then I want to run it underneath the bottom of the leather, and then you're going to run it through that loop, and then pull it tight and get it nice and lined up. And then you want to give enough room so it'll loop through your buttonhole. So you'll tie another knot here and hold your 2 pieces of leather together so it stays nice and flat. And then if you want to make it, you can cut it there if that's the length you want, or you can make it adjustable and do 2 loops. So you just want it slightly larger than your button size. You can use shank buttons, but it's easier if you have the 2-hole button. Because if you have the shank button, you can run it through the loop. Okay, so there's how you make your parts. And sometimes I go back and trim my leather up better on the bottom with the scissors. And you'll just need a glover's needle and the KO thread to do your attachment.